My name is Jonnie Kifer, and my book was Typhoid Mary, Captive to the Public's Health by Judith Walter Levitt. And since the author didn't go into a lot of detail about what typhoid fever actually is, I wanted to give a bit of background information at the beginning. And while typhoid fever is common in developing countries, there are fewer than 400 cases per year in the United States. The causes of typhoid fever are contaminated food and water, which contain the bacteria Salmonella typhi. These bacteria enter the body through ingestion and then penetrate the intestine wall, and the person usually experiences headache, body ache, high fever, diarrhea, hallucinations, cough, nosebleed, and a red rash that usually appears on the abdomen. Without treatment, one can die from dehydration or emaciation, and about 1 in 10 who contract typhoid fever will actually die. One is usually diagnosed with typhoid through blood, stool, or urine culture, although one can carry typhoid without the presence of bacteria in their urine. Carriers tend to unknowingly pass bacteria, sometimes without ever knowing they had typhoid, and typhoid bacteria can persist in the gallbladder of patients for an indefinite period of time. With modern sanitation and cleanliness standards, it's less common today to contract typhoid from a carrier, but Mary Mallon was the first healthy carrier of typhoid in the United States to be recognized. Mary Mallon was an Irish immigrant who came to the United States to work in 1884. She found work as a cook from 1900 to 1907 in New York City. In 1906, it was discovered that she had been responsible for the infection of 26 people, and she was placed in captivity a year later. But then she was released 3 years after that, in 1910, on the stipulation that she never cook again. However, she did, and she infected an additional 25 people at a women's hospital, and she was taken back into custody where she remained for the rest of her life. Policies that developed as a result of Mary's condition were pretty numerous. Health departments were created because the realization that the situation could happen again, either with typhoid or another disease, was pretty frightening. Until this point, when an infectious outbreak occurred, a board of medical experts would meet probably like once or twice to discuss solutions and causes, and then they would disband completely until the next event. Sanitation departments and programs were formed to clean the city and clean it of filth in order to stop the spread of disease. While this helped, it was not a complete solution, and scientists then began to try to explain illness in a new way, which led to the discovery of biological and microbial causes of disease and germ theory. It was realized that filth is not the only cause of illness. Germs and microbiology emerged as a new field of study, and much was learned about the cause of disease. Isolation hospitals were funded by the new health departments in order to avoid locking people up like Mary Mallon. Extreme cases and unexplained illnesses could then be examined in a medical setting instead of holding people in prison in order to protect the public. Food handling policies were developed by health departments in order to ensure food service personnel could learn how to prevent contracting and spreading illness through their food. The development of germ theory later led to the innovation of immunizations, and vaccination programs were developed to prevent illness. At the time, it was justified to hold Mary Mallon because over 4,000 people per year were contracting typhoid in New York City at the time, and she was responsible for 51 cases. After her initial release, she returned to cooking even after vowing not to. And while Mary Mallon was in captivity, she never changed her habits. She refused to acknowledge she ever had typhoid, and she refused the removal of her gallbladder. She was viewed as a menace, and she was a member of the servant class, which kind of gave the authorities more power to hold her. I don't think it was just to hold Mary against her will, because many people were released on their own reconnaissance and were monitored very closely. They had to give up jobs, caring for their own children, and being public figures, but for Mary, since she was a member of the servant class, this would have been virtually the same as her captivity anyway. The author argues that Typhoid Mary's case illustrates that one must look at public health problems from differing standpoints, and we must learn from each event in order to best serve the public in the future. The transmission of disease is not always cut and dry, and there are different ways in which public health incidents arise, and it is important to examine them with a broader view in order to shape our understanding of the incident and future incidents. When isolation is necessary, it's important to balance the public safety and individual liberties which actually didn't really happen in Mary Mallon's case.